Okay, Movember, I'm going to go to the whiteboard now, do a few videos, a couple of catch-up videos because I was training last weekend, and this weekend I'm going off the cyber grid for a men's retreat that I'm really looking forward to. So today the video is going to be on the 3 circles. Now this 3 circles is from Sex Addicts Anonymous, but you're going to find this template in a lot of places. Alexandra Katahakis writes about it in her book, Sex Addiction as Affect Dysregulation, and she's got her own names. They say they copyrighted this, so everyone's been sort of careful, and they need to be. And Facing the Shadow, or Carnes's other book that I love, for general addiction. If you're an addiction practitioner out there, the Facing Addiction, you will find this information in there. What Patrick puts it down to, there's different names for different things, right? But the ones that I like is for the inner circle. Essentially, it's our bottom lines. These are those behaviors that we have identified as problematic. So depending on what addiction you're in, this will be something you've got to get really clear on. Now, in some fellowships like Narcotics Anonymous, you might even extend out onto things just like they talk about any mood or mind-altering drug. Sex Addicts Anonymous allows you to define your own boundaries based on your personal history. If you go to Sexaholics Anonymous, they will define these boundaries in the inner circle for you. But to give you an idea, it's what's on your abstinence list. What have you identified? If you're a food addict, what have you identified that just tips you over the line and puts you in that first step, powerlessness? And in a way, this is going to highlight a whole bunch of other tools too. The cycle of addiction will be revealed from this. When you look at your recovery plan, will be revealed from this. And it's even a decent tool for partners. So anything that we've worked out, that the term bottom line is, if we go from Carnes, he talks about any things that we need to be abstinent about. It's our abstinence list. And so with this list, it will be depending on what fellowship you're in. And I know Patrick Carnes has got another delightful book called A Gentle Path Through the 12 Principles. And he in his first step about really growing in awareness and acceptance is what are the limits do we have? And the road in recovery seems to get thinner, but well paved and well lit, because more and more you realize, wow, I'm drinking way too much coffee, or I'm working too much, and other things get put on this list. But essentially, we need to go through and find out what are those behaviors. Now, most addicts will put the thing on the table that's really damaged them the most and caused them a lot of pain, but we like to keep something behind our back. And there's a saying I like, is we throw in the towel, but we stand on the corner. And so we don't really get to throw in the towel and win. And so when we're looking at these behaviors, you want to go through it generally with a sponsor. In Carnes's book, the first chapter he gets people to fill out is one about breaking delusion. And to really even be able to identify what our bottom lines are, we've got to get through all the fog of impaired thinking. And I'll talk about that in the cycle of addiction. But the breaking of delusion means, really, what are my problems right now? What are my secrets? What are my lists of excuses and rationales? And what are the consequences that I'm really minimizing? And he then gets you to look at your denial types, all to try and put off all the layers so we can get to this truth. So this idea that the inner circle will be a long list of things like no alcohol, no drugs of any mood-altering kind, no pornography, no processed carbohydrate, no gambling on horse races, no gambling apps on our phone, no sex on premises, no voyeurism longer than the second look. What's going to go on there? And this is where we really do need the help of a sponsor or a therapist. If someone comes to me with an addiction, I'll try and help them with this initial inner circle. What needs to be put on there? And then for some folks, we need accountability for those. So if you're an Overeaters Anonymous, you might have your food plan based on the foods that you are not triggered by and how much you're going to eat that day, and then you hand that food plan over to a sponsor. For a sex addict, you might have accountability software or tracking software on your devices. So we try and make sure that whatever goes in this middle circle, there's a consequence for it. There's no amnesty for this sort of honesty. Excuse me. So the next thing is the boundaries list. Now Cairns calls them boundaries, and Catahakis calls it the activation zone. And so what you're essentially looking for here are what are the triggering behaviors that steer me towards a relapse, that steer me towards acting out. Now, to give an example, not porns would be something that might lead someone to pornography, sexualized movie or TV, objectifying people. An activation zone for an alcoholic might be going to the pub to do that quiz night that they like to do. And they don't want to give that up. Or the fishing club they've been going to 25 years. Now I'm not going to give that membership up just because I've got to get sober. We might find that some of these behaviours can return, but early on we might have more strict boundaries in place that protect us from a relapse. Another example might be masturbation in sex addiction, where people put that on hold, have a period of celibacy, but then they might return to that behaviour in a manageable and healthy, sober way. So there'll be certain things that we will withdraw from permanently. I'm an alcoholic, haven't had a drink for 33 years, but there'll be other things that I might return to once there's some manageability around that activity. In the beginning days, what we're looking for here is what personal boundaries do I need to have? What are the things that activate me towards coming back into this inner circle that cause me pain? And again, this would be something that's worth going through with a sponsor, because addicts don't like to give up the little things that cause them pleasure. When I go over the cycle of addiction, I want to really highlight how we have to stop this thing at impaired thinking and fantasy, because by the time we get to rituals, the momentum is speeding up. Last but not least, on the outer circle, Cairns talks about it. For sex addiction, he'll say it's a healthy sex plan for sex addiction. You know, what's my healthy sexuality going to be? Catahakis, when we look at her book, will talk about it as a integrity zone, and I really love that that way of putting it. Because what we are aiming at is living in integrity. And I know there's sort of, especially in the sex addiction world and pornography, there's an argument around purity, and if you actually happen to be a Christian and you're working in this field, all of a sudden, it's about God and people can't have their own sexual sort of preferences. And that's not what this is about. What's integrity mean to you? As the world famous author and healthcare professional Robert Wise says, is there's nothing wrong with going to see a sex on premises worker as long as you tell your wife on the way out. You know, where are we going to bring our lives into integrity? And I've seen people have bottom lines where they still have polyamorous relationships in sexual recovery, but they are breaking a bottom line if they're dishonest about their activity. So this really is an opportunity for a person to come in, use this tool, and expand it into the integrity zone that they want. Now, the only tips I would give on this outer circle is that this activation zone is also an attempt to push us back out to what are our recovery plans. And I've listened to a lot of recovery plans in treatment. And a lot of people love to put the healthy lifestyle choices on the outside. Yoga, healthy eating, exercise, travel, and all those things are wonderful. And it's great to, once you can harness addiction and set some really clear boundaries, it gives you the bandwidth to get back into stuff that you're passionate about. However, if we don't get traction in recovery, it all just slips away in a heartbeat. We can relapse so quick. So one of the things that I think is really important is the main focus for a while, especially that first 90 days in recovery, is to be really strict, and the main focus being it might be 12-step meetings, it might be therapy. If you're in a 12-step fellowship, it might be working with a sponsor. It will be working the 12 steps, and riding on those 12 steps. It will be bringing in service, helping others. You know, an addict one day clean can help another addict. So the focus really needs to be this sort of in the first sort of 90 days. Cairns has a 130 day sort of early plan that in his program, in his recovery starter kit. And so the idea of the 3 circles is that we focus here, and Kahn certainly talks about diet and nutrition and exercise and rest, sleep hygiene, meditation, and these 3 are absolutely necessary for the brain disorder that we have. Because addiction is a brain disorder. Now this will be a little bit of a risk. I'll see if I can find it. Maybe I can't see it right now. But what I do know is that at the moment in September 2019, the American Medical Association has reworked their definition of what addiction is, but it is still essentially highlighting that it is a disorder of the brain's reward, memory, and motivational circuitry. I was looking to see if I had one of my devices open and ready so I could just find that. A colleague of mine, Robbie Abels, has posted into a collegial conversation online to ask other addiction specialists what they think about this new diagnosis. And at first glance, it's still heading in the right direction. So I hope this has been useful. If you go into a 12-step fellowship, especially SAA, and they say, have you done your 3 circles, this is what they're talking about. If you go to treatment, in many places they'll use a variation of this tool. They'll change the words because SAA has got the copyright on it. So if you want to get the original document, you can download the pamphlet from the 12-step fellowships from SAA. Alexandra Katahakis has probably got the most exemplary book on sex addiction for professionals. But if you're really wanting to find this written in a fairly simple and very usable way, Patrick Carnes' book, either Facing the Shadow or the Blue Book, Facing Addiction. So it is Movember, lots of good things to donate to. Any donation will be going to a good cause, and I wish you well, take care of your heart today, and see you again in the next video.